Welcome all. Yesterday we have done climate prevention. A lot more we have discussed in COP 21. Great. I hope that all of you have seen the lecture. And if not, then go down and see it. Total detailed discussion. Right? Yesterday we have done a lot in the Paris setting. I'm just quickly recapitulating because we have a lot today. I have to do COP 26 also we have done, right? COP 27 we have, COP 28, 29, 30. All of this we have to do today. So talking about Paris Agreement, we have talked about global stocktake. We have talked about NDC. We have talked about nationally determined contribution NDC. Then what else we have talked about NDC? We have discussed the European deal. Right? This all we have discussed. So this all we have discussed in the COP, right? COP 21 we have talked this year. We talked about Paris Agreement, global stocktake, national instrument contribution, European deal, and all of this which is important. Why? Even in COP 20, you see today COP 27 में भी हम इसी की बात करेंगे, 28, 29, 30 सब में इसी की बात करेंगे. Why? Because it's all are interlinked. NDC determination done in recent COPs, right? So ये सारा क्या है? Interlinked. That's why I told you even you revise it when you go back, because again we will be discussing the same topics but in a different way in different COPs. Okay. So if you want to take your time, 2 minutes quickly, you can go through the points that we have done in the different COPs. So that I should start COP 27 now. Climate Convention COP 27. Any doubt you had from the previous COP, you can just ask. Sure, and the share. 2022. It is happened when in 2020. Which COP? COP 27. Please write down the name. And if you have any doubt from the previous COPs, you can ask it. Okay, so what are the key points that I'm going to discuss? Yesterday I have talked about the loss and damage fund. What is the idea of loss and damage fund? This has already been discussed in yesterday. Also, I told you discussing the Warsaw. Warsaw, we have already discussed about this, but loss and damage fund was initiated. The provision was written because it has to be formalized in a way. The formulation, the formalization of the provision happened in COP 27, wherein the developed countries have to give the fund. The compensation has to be given to the developing countries and SIDs particularly, your small island states, small island developing states. This is the full. And why do they need compensation? Because it is rightly said that because it was so, they invested so much into the industrial revolution. And hence there was complete what? The repercussions came on small island countries. Why? Because the glaciers which are receding are because of the activities which have been taking place in industrial revolution. Like let's say they have used the resources and there have been an emission of the greenhouse gases. And because of that, we have seen there is a prolonged effect which has come to on the climate. And this is definitely a thing which you cannot avoid. It's something which is difficult to avoid. If you see the kind of the magnitude of impact that it has left on the climate, it is huge. So point number one, it is very difficult that to even mitigate it. Second is the people, small island countries and the developing states which are facing the problems are also to be given the compensation by the developed countries who are considered as the real contributors, and the major contributors of the climatic changes which is happening now. Okay, so write down first write down the introduction of COP27 became COP27 in Sharm el Sheikh, Egypt, Egypt. COP27 in Sharm el Sheikh, Egypt, built on the momentum of previous conferences. It built on the momentum of previous conferences, built on the momentum of previous conferences, with a strong focus on implementation and climate finance. With a strong focus on implementation and climate finance. Full stop. The summit, please underline both the terms implementation and climate finance. Right down. The summit aimed to drive action. On global climate agenda. The summit aimed to drive action on the summit aimed to drive action on global climate agenda. The summit aimed to drive action on global climate agenda, particularly for vulnerable countries, with specific emphasis on climate adaptation, with specific emphasis on climate adaptation, with specific emphasis on climate adaptation, loss and damage and finance. Summit aim to drive action on global climate agenda, particularly for vulnerable countries, with specific emphasis on climate adaptation, loss and damage and finance. Loss and damage and finance. Right on. Loss and damage and finance. Okay. Next item. Here are some of the key initiatives and the launches. Right on. Here are the key initiatives and the launches of the COP27. First write down, loss and damage fund. First write down, loss and damage fund. Right. The fund was agreed upon at COP27. The fund was agreed upon at COP27. When it was agreed, COP27, for discussion, always remember this. The fund first proposed in the 1990s by Alliance of Small Island States. The fund first proposed by in 1990s. The fund first proposed in the 1990s by Alliance of Small Island States. By Alliance of Small Island States. By the Alliance of Small Island States. By the Alliance of Small Island States. Right on. By the Alliance of Small Island States, gained support from G77 and China. Right on. Next. Loss and damage refers to negative consequences. Loss and damage refers to negative consequences that arise from unavoidable risk of climate change. COP27. Loss and damage refers to the negative consequences that arise from unavoidable risk of climate change. Like rising sea level, prolonged heat waves, rising sea level, prolonged heat waves, desertification, acidification of the sea, desertification, acidification of the sea. Desertification, acidification of the sea. Yes, yes. And the loss. Loss and damage refers to negative consequences that arise from unavoidable risk of climate change, like rising sea level, prolonged heat waves, desertification, and acidification of sea. Next point, let me talk about what else it talked about. Talked about methane awareness and response system. Next thing they talked about is methane awareness. Methane awareness and response system. Methane awareness and response system. Right now. The Methane Action and Remote Sensing Initiative, which is MARS. We call it as short form MARS. Right now. Methane Action and Response Sensing Initiative was introduced in Methane action and response. Initiative. Methane action and response. Initiative. Methane action and remote sensing initiative. Methane action and remote sensing. And initiative, very important item, is underlined. Was introduced at the UNFCCC. Was introduced at UNFCCC. UNFCCC. Full stop. This initiative is the integral part of. This initiative is the integral part of UNEP. UNEP. Do you remember there is some theme discussion that has happened in COP26 as well? What is that? There is a methane pledge, right? And in which India has not signed. Remember from the previous classes? Where India has not signed. So what is the whole idea? That methane which is being generated from organic matter has to be reduced, which is your biomass. Okay, so this was the whole issue that we have to reduce the release of the methane from the organic matter. This has to be reduced. Next, Vicky. Write down. This was a key outcome. Remember from the previous class, we talked about global methane pledge. Okay. Next, Vicky. Please add on. This initiative is an integral part of UNEP. Third point, nature-based solution and ecosystem protection. Nature-based solution. Nature-based solution. In COP27, they talked about nature-based solution and ecosystem protection. Nature-based solution and ecosystem protection. Right now, nature-based solution have been included for the first time. Nature-based solution has been included in the COP for the first time. Next, fourth, long-term low-emission development strategy. There we have to discuss more. Long-term, like now, long-term low-emission development strategies. LTLED. Short form is LTLED. Long-term low emissions development. Long-term low emissions development strategy. The Paris Agreement in Article 4 states that, see, this is how it has been related. Now, Paris Agreement ka baat hua kyun? Because first time here we have talked about the long-term LTLED. We have already talked about it in Paris Agreement in Article 4 of. It is just we are further developing upon this idea. We are further developing upon this idea in COP 27. Okay, that is why it is mandatory to read certain COPs. Write down. All parties should strive to formulate and communicate long-term. All parties strive to formulate and communicate long-term low greenhouse gas emissions, development strategy. Okay. India submitted its long-term low emissions development strategy. So India ने अपना already submit कर दिया है long-term development strategy. India has submitted is long-term low emissions. India has completed its long-term low emission development. Like this has been already done. Okay. Right on next. What are the features of what India has submitted? Right now, the features. India's LT LED features. Important, very important. Even in perspective, we have to write. Right now, India's LT LED features. India's LT LED features. India's LT LED features. We came. First point. Resource utilization and energy security. First point right now. Resource utilization and energy. Resource utilization and energy security. Right now. Energy security. What is happening in India these days? We are talking about the energy security. As you know, the things are developing in the state of Hormuz. The things are still the same, and it's looking like the things are going to be more tightened up, considering the situation in state of Hormuz, because they are allowing just little ships. They're allowing just very trickle ships to go and pass through the passages. So this mandate now by the government has urged the people to save the energy. Have you seen that thing? That how the Prime Minister of India has urged people to save on the fuel, to save the energy by taking care of the certain things, the kind of things that we are doing on a daily basis. For example, he wants us to say take some to make some lifestyle changes. For example, if we are going by our own vehicle, then we should carpool, or we should use the public transport. And in case if we are working in any IT company, so if the provision is being followed, for example, if there is possibility that the work from home can be given to the employees, that is also being talked about in the speech. And in fact, there is a lot of development which is happening on this idea. Now let's see what will happen. So this is what energy security. This is a recent example of energy security which I can talk about. Okay. So we know that the reserve, the kind of reserves that they are left with, and obviously they can see, they're having an apprehension that maybe in the future or maybe the coming days or months, so we will have the lack of the fuels. Reason being because if this is not getting revoked, the point is that if this passage is not opening up, this is being obstructed by Iran because of the war which has taken place between US, Israel, and Iran. Now, having said that, if this kind of obstruction will still continue, definitely we will have the shortages of the fuel. And supply chain management disruptions is on the peak, and that we can see definitely. Whether it's we talk about fuels, whether we talk about LPG, LNG, petrol, diesel, you name it, there is a scarcity of all these fuels now. So this is what has been said. I mean, recently in Kalka news where this has been developed, the things are still developing upon it, how and where how we have to execute, and how the firms also will take the call. So this is only the time will decide, and we'll also get to know as the time will progress. But the point is here that how the country is saving on the energy. The country has been talking about the EVs. बहुत पहले से ही हमने EVs के बारे में बात करना start कर दिया था. We have started talking about infrastructure. Why? Because we will be needing the charging points also. It is not easy to accommodate so many people and electric vehicles needing the charging points in each and every place, right? After at least after every 2 hours of halt, at least we should have what? 2 hours of the journey, we should have what? A place where the charging point should be there. So we are also thinking on this development. It's just that we are not having the proper infrastructure. That's why people are still scared of moving to the electric vehicles from the conventional vehicles that they are using right now. So all of this is is possible only when you have better infrastructure, and there is a lot of things that you have things that you have developed in the people that yes, electric mobility or electric vehicles are safe. If you see the case of the electric vehicles, also a lot of cases are coming in from the electric vehicles that they are not safe. It is not easy to use them. There is a lot of fires which develops in the vehicle. So all of this is why, because people have the apprehensions. So maybe we don't know what happens to the vehicle, etc. So first of all, the country has to build in the faith in the people that this is possible. Then only we will be able to make a robust strategy that what we have to do next. Okay. So the first is resource utilization and energy security. Write down rational use of national resources. Write down under it. Rational use of natural resources. Rational use of natural resources. National use of natural resources. Okay. With transition from fossil fuels. With transition from fossil fuels. With transition from fossil fuels. Transition from fossil fuels in a just, sustainable and inclusive manner. In a just, sustainable and inclusive manner. In a just, sustainable and inclusive manner. Next slide down. National Hydrogen Mission. National Hydrogen Mission. Next slide down. Long-term vision, this is also mentioned. National Hydrogen Mission. Write down about National Hydrogen Mission with launched in 2021 to make launched in 2021 to make India a green hydrogen hub. India a green hydrogen hub. Next, looking in transport sector transformation. Transport sector transformation. Transport sector transformation item. Expansion of biofuels. Expansion of biofuels. Ethanol blending in petrol. You must be knowing that we have started a program, we call it as ethanol E20. Ethanol blending program. What is this? That in petrol we will be adding what? 20% of ethanol, and that will be used in the vehicles. Although there are a lot of problems in the recent vehicles because they are not E20 compliant. The vehicles which were already there, if you are trying to use this E20, then they are not ethanol compliant. That is why there are a lot of problems while you are driving. But otherwise, the manufacturing of the vehicles, which is done in recent times, now they are taking care of this thing, that the vehicle should be ethanol compliant. Okay. Write down next. Expansion of biofuels, ethanol blending in petrol. Targeting 20% by 2025. Targeting 20% by 2025. Next, looking in sustainable urbanization. Next point under LTLED is sustainable urbanization. What is the idea of sustainable urbanization? Sustainable urbanization लिखती growth driven by smart cities. Growth driven by smart cities. Growth driven by smart cities, energy resource efficient planning, energy resource efficient planning, energy resource efficient planning, green building codes. Pehla है smart cities. What we will form? We will form smart cities. That is important. Next, the next thing in this energy resource efficient planning. Energy resource / resource efficient planning. Right on next. And innovative waste management. Innovative waste management. And last, building tools. Green building tools. Waste management. And green building tools. Now, what do you understand by all this? When I talk about the smart cities, we're talking there's a concept of smart cities being developed. They are very, for example, biggest city. That is also one of the smart city, right? Energy resource efficient planning, whatever we are using, how to use all of the resources which are present efficiently, that we need to be used. It's not that haphazardly you are using the resources and the wastage is built up. And the wastage is in terms of how you're wasting, how you're managing the waste. So this is called innovative waste management. Then green building codes. Green building codes means all the infrastructure, all the construction that we are doing these days, that has to include some of the codes. For example, the material that is being used in building or in the construction, that has to be climate friendly. For example, that will be reducing the greenhouse gases, or it will be following the sustainable idea. There are certain materials which are being used which are less pollutant, right? The manufacturing of those substances, manufacturing of those particular material or the ingredient is having the less burdening on the environment. For example, recently there was the article on flash ash also. What do you understand by flash ash? This is basically a pulverized coal. Pulverized समझते हैं हम, crushed coal, okay? Crushed coal को जब हम burn करते हैं, तो burn जब करेंगे pulverized coal को pulverized का मतलब है powder form में जो आपका coal होता है. जब आप उसको burn करेंगे तो क्या निकलेगा? Fly ash निकलेगा. And this fly ash is basically used in a lot of places, right? It is used in the construction materials. It is used in a lot of places. It can be used like that. Okay, so this is called that whatever byproduct is there, how we are managing it, how we are utilizing it. And now it has become mandatory. It is 100% mandatory for the plants which have been established. Although plants are after 2 to 3 years पुराने हैं, plants को मतलब यहाँ पे factories है. Please don't be mistaken. Plants means factories over here. The plants which has been recently established and the 2 to 3 years they are old, then definitely they have to mandate what? There should be 100% utilization of the fly ash, and this comes in an EPA Act 1986. It comes in an EPA Act of 1986. Okay. Similarly, if you have got the concept of flue gas, right? What is that? Flue gas आपका release होता है in the thermal power plant. In the thermal power plant, in fact, it has been even asked in your exhibits. thermal power plant is where your flue gas is being released. And flue gas is also used in what? Construction materials. For example, again, it is used in embankments, road construction. Road construction, it is used in filling the mines. All of these are the applications. So this has been also made mandatory, 100% mandatory to use the all sort of flue gases which have been released in the atmosphere to fully utilize them and use them in the further materials. Okay. Anything that you have to ask from this? Anything? Any query that you have? He's gone. He's coming and going back. LC, this is a person. Okay. Now coming back to it. Right on. Top 28 initiatives. Right on. Top 28 initiatives. You see? Now we'll discuss about top 28. Anything that you have to ask in this? Anything that you need to ask in this? कोई भी कौन मतलब right now top 28 Dubai, where it took place in Dubai, UAE. Right now 2023 UNFCCC conference 2028 2023 UNFCCC conference took place in UAE, Dubai. UAE, Dubai. UNFCCC is an international environment agreement. All of you know that. I don't need to repeat it. Okay. सीधा आते हैं COP 28 की key outcomes. Write down COP 28 key outcomes. COP 28 key outcomes. Directly come on COP 28 key outcomes. Write down. First point. Conclusion of the first global stock take. What they concluded? Conclusion of the first global stock take. There was a conclusion of the first global stock take. Right now, I've told you already what is a global stock take. Just a reminder for those people who have forgotten it. So basically, long-term vision, considering the long-term vision of the Paris Agreement, it was said that we have to give the small visions, short-term visions to the country. Now, how we will assess that whether the long-term vision is, we have the capacity to fulfill the long-term vision or not, by assessing the short-term visions that we have given to the countries. Now we will try to check upon them, we will try to assess them whether they have completed their targets or not. If they have not completed the targets, definitely we will to complete the long-term vision, right? For example, one of the vision is by 2070, we will be having a net neutrality. So these are some of the visions that has been taken for the long term. Okay, so when we are talking about this, how we will calculate, how we will assess that whether we are on the right path or not. So we have to see first short-term visions, whether they have been fulfilled or not by the different countries. For example, NDCs, through NDCs they have been completed or not, or the various measures which have been taken by the respective countries. We will try to figure it out. In case we have seen that it's not covered up, it's not completed, then definitely we have to take some aggressive steps. Right on next. Nikki. COP28 key outcomes. Right on. Conclusion of the first global stock take. Conclusion of the first global stock take. First global stock take of the Paris Agreement took place. First global stock take. First global stock take. Conclusion of the Paris Agreement took place. First global stock take of the Paris Agreement took place. Comma. Assessing global progress. Assessing global progress. Assessing global progress towards 1.5 degrees Celsius. Assessing progress towards 1.5 degrees Celsius goal. First, I'm again repeating, first global stocktake of the Paris Agreement took place. First global stocktake of the Paris Agreement took place. Assessing global progress towards 1.5 degrees Celsius goal. What did it prove? What was the conclusion of the assessment right now? The stocktake demonstrated that the world is off track. And urgent actions are required to close this gap. Next slide down. Loss and damage fund. Again, there was a discussion of loss and damage fund. You see how loss and damage fund. Right now. Established at COP28. Right on. Established at COP28 to provide financial steps. Now we have, for the first COP27, we have talked about that how it will be for the progress in this direction. In COP28, we have also decided the amount which has to be given to the developing countries. Right down. Established at COP28 to provide financial support. Established at COP28 to provide financial support to developing countries suffering from climatic related damages. Suffering from climatic related damages. Full stop. Since the adoption of the decision, an amount of around $700 million. $700 million. 700 million. $700 million was decided. $700 million was decided. $700 million was decided. The UAE, right down. The UAE has announced its commitment of USD. The UAE has announced its commitment of USD 100 million to loss and damage fund. 100 million loss and damage fund. $200 million right now, loss and damage fund. The UAE has announced its commitment. The UAE has announced its commitment of USD 100 million to loss and damage fund. Now see, $700 million has been announced. That is different. Then separately, there is additional $100 million that has been announced for it. Okay? So write down again. Just see it whether you have written right or not. I'm repeating again. Establish at COP28 to provide financial support to developing countries suffering from climate-related damage. Since the adoption of the decision, an amount of around USD 700 million has been pledged. How much? Various countries have pledged. Collectively, they will give $700 million. Collectively, please focus on that. All the countries collectively will give, they will contribute how much? $700 million in the amount. Next is your UAE separately. They will invest how much? $100 million in the loss and damage fund. Then write down. Next key outcome of COP28 was net zero by 2050. Net zero by 2050. Write down. Net zero by 2050. Okay. First point, commitment to transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy. Commitment to transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy. But without the clear timeline. They have pledged, they have said that we will transition from the fossil fuels to renewable energy, but they have not given a clear timeline on that. But net zero by 2050. In between, they have not taken the short visions. Lie down. COP28 ends with a call to transition away. COP28 ends with a call to transition away. To transition away from fossil fuels. To transition away from fossil fuels. Okay, next write down. There was also very important global cooling pledge. This is the newest in the list. Write down. Global cooling pledge. What it is all about, it has been discussed in COP28. global cooling pledge right now. It is a joint initiative between UAE. It is a joint initiative between UAE and UNEP. सबसे पहले ये देखिए. It's a joint initiative between UAE and UNEP, led cool coalition. Led cool coalition. Cool coalition, right now. The pledge was launched at 28. Next point, the pledge was launched at 28. It aims to raise ambition. Next point, it aims to raise ambition and international cooperation. What is the purpose? To raise ambition and international cooperation through collective global targets. It aims to raise ambition and international cooperation through collective global targets to reduce cooling-related emissions. To reduce cooling-related emissions by 68%. By 68%. Again, India has not signed. India has not signed. Cooling, global cooling pledge. India has not signed global cooling pledge. What it is stating. Now, global cooling pledge is what simple. Your cooling related materials. For example, all the things, refrigerators, ACs, etc. They are also the biggest contributors because the kind of emissions which is happening from them, they are the biggest contributors of the ozone layer depletion. And next what? They are also adding on to the climate change. So when both they are changing a lot of many things, and what happens? You have to decrease the use of all this. Either you have to go to the alternatives, or you have to see that they should be efficiently used. There can be two cases. Now, point number one is this: that India has not signed this pledge. They are saying that we are not, because already they have to have reductions in the Kali amendment. The Kali amendment is related to, again, the phase reduction of HCFCs, right, which is also one of the components which is used in the refrigerators. So this is what. Now the point is, this is done by which two organizations? One country is involved, and this is UNEP, which is involved here. It led the coalition, right? And how much we have to reduce? By 68% we have to reduce. By 2056, we have to reduce it to 68% by 2050. Now coming to the next point, COP29. Quickly come to COP29, which took place in Baku, Azerbaijan. COP29, which took place in Bagh, Azerbaijan. What are the provisions right now? Okay, so here we have talked about new climate finance goal. What is that? What is the new climate finance goal? We have taken a new quantitative value. First of all, write down UNFCCC COP29 took place in Baku, Azerbaijan. COP29, UNFCCC COP29 took place in Baku, Azerbaijan. Next point, new climate finance goal. First is new climate finance. New climate finance goal. Pehla goal likhiye. A major breakthrough at COP29 was NCQG. I'm writing the full short form of it now. NCQG. NCQG, which aims to triple climate finance. It aims to triple climate finance from $100 billion. It aims to it aims to triple climate finance to from $100 billion to $300 billion. कहाँ से लेके जाना है? Earlier climate finance का कितना हमें amount रखा है? $100 billion. $100 billion. It has tripled it. It has taken it to $300 billion. Right? It has tripled it right now, which aims to triple climate finance to $300 billion by 2035. By 2035, we have to get this Cont finance by 2035. Right down. Increased financing. Right on the provision under it. Increased financing. Developed countries are expected to lead this effort. Developed countries are expected. They are expected by, I've told you the reason, because they were the biggest contributors of the greenhouse emissions and the climate change, which has happened now. Right down. Developed countries are expected to lead this effort, but there is a broader call to mobilize. This amount. But there is a broader call to mobilize this amount from all public and private sources. From all public and private sources. Write down. What are the focus areas? Focus areas, write down. The declaration target methane emissions. Okay, second point, write down. Declaration on reducing methane emissions. What is the second topic that has been discussed here? Write down. Declaration on reducing methane emissions. Declaration on reducing methane emissions. Right now, over 30 countries, including US, Germany. Over 30 countries, including US, Germany, UK, and UAE, endorse COP29. Declaration on reducing methane. Declaration on, please write up this one. Declaration on reducing methane emissions. Declaration on reducing methane emissions. Write down next. Again, India did not sign it. अब आप ये पैटर्न देखिए. Methane, India did not sign it. Global Cooling Pledge, India did not sign it. Methane Pledge, which is taken in COP26, India did not sign it. Right? Okay, write down. India did not sign it. Next, focus area. Again, वही same चीज है, global reduction, same चीज that talked in COP26 also. The declaration targets methane emissions from organic waste. Declaration targets methane emissions from organic waste, which contributes 20% of global methane emissions. Which contributes 20% of global methane emissions. Right on the third objective taken under it. Right on the third objective, okay, I'm giving you some time to revise. I'm giving you 2 minutes. If you have any doubt, please ask. Okay, we'll move on. third point, indigenous and local community. Do you have any doubt? All the online students, do you have any doubt in this? Any of the provision, any of the points that you can read, you are not able to understand, please ask. And please comment. I think there are some comments which are there. Okay, all clear? All clear now. देखिए इसको प्रीलिम्स के लिए बहुत अच्छे से प्रिपेयर करना, बिकॉज प्रीलिम्स में इसी में से आपका हाथ से क्वेश्चन पूछा जाएगा. These are one of the most asked parts of the prelims, and if you will be able to do this very nicely, आपको भी you will have this add-on advantage, because since you are doing the geography option, सबसे अच्छी बात यही है in geography option when we are revising the environment etc. आपका prelims के हिसाब से revise है. तो current affairs तो करना ही है, because we never know that they might ask about COP29 or COP30, because it's a part of the environmental geography, right? So after current affairs, which has been added more and more in optional subjects these days, so you never know. So prepare it well, at least do 4 or 5 provisions so that you can write it if case comes. And then also write that what are the effects with respect to India, right? For example, if we talk about the global methane, it can be also why the India is refraining from signing the global methane pledges, right? Or why they are not the promoter of the global methane emission which is being done, and they are not ratifying and not signing the document. So that can be, yeah. So these are some of the analytical questions you should know why India is refraining from that. Okay. So one thing is this, and second thing is try to focus on the provision. एक provision में आप ध्यान देंगे so that यही इसी का ही statement बन के prelims में आएगा, and it will be very easy for you अगर आपने extensively notes को अच्छे से पढ़ा, right? Right now, indigenous people and local communities. Next thing we talked about this, indigenous people and local communities. This is the first time this idea has been developed. Indigenous people and local communities. They talked about that the local communities should also be benefited. And for the first time, this has been discussed in any of the talks right now. Okay. Bagh work plan for 29 reinforced the role of indigenous people. Bagh 29 reinforced. And Baku reinforced the role of indigenous people and local communities. Reinforce the role of indigenous people and local communities. Indigenous people and local communities like in the climate action by adopting Baku work plan. What is the main heading should be? Baku work plan. So they have adopted what? Baku work plan, in which they have focused on indigenous people and local communities, which have reinforced the role of indigenous people and local communities in the activities. Okay, write down. In the climate action, I think I missed something there. Local communities in the climate action. Please add this one. In the climate action, by adopting Baku work plan. Write down next. They emphasize on bridging the indigenous knowledge. Bridging the gap. It emphasized on bridging the gap. It emphasized on bridging the gap between bridging the indigenous knowledge with modern science. Bridging the indigenous knowledge with modern science. Do you think there's a lot of gap with modern science, which is because the application which modern science is used in various places, or the indigenous knowledge here, उसमें काफी ज़्यादा there is we see is not as integrated but as different entities, right? There is something that modern science has said, there's something which indigenous people have done in practice. So we see a kind of a gap between them, right? So I'm bridging indigenous knowledge with modern science. Next, enhancing indigenous participation. Enhancing indigenous participation in the climate dialogues. In the climate dialogues. Enhancing indigenous participation in climate dialogues and policy making. And policy making. Indigenous dialogue and policy making. Right down. Embedded indigenous values. Embedded indigenous values. Embedded indigenous values into climate policies. Embedded indigenous values in climate policies. These are some of the most important. आप ये कहीं और भी use कर सकते हैं. We can use the example of COP29, how COP29 has valued the role of indigenous people. This could be one of the points also. If somewhere you see the question being asked on the indigenous people community role in environment and climate change policies. Right? So you can definitely use these examples. If fit examples, you can definitely fit in any of your answers. Right? Right down very interesting, which has been taught here is gender in climate change. Now, what is the idea that they have built upon gender in climate? They are saying that all the policies that have been built, they are not gender responsive. That means the kind of the policies that we are bringing, they are almost same for everyone, but we have to see that some of should cater to a specific gender. And here we are more focused and more concerned about women and children. Okay. So write down Lima work program on gender. Lima, Lima. Lima work program on gender. LWPG. Lima work program on gender. A decision was made to extend Lima work program. A decision was made to extend Lima work program on gender for another 10 years, emphasizing the need for gender responsive climate policies. Emphasizing the need for gender responsive climate policies. Next, we keep future agenda. Future agenda. All of you have not done COP30, and a lot of chances are in this year questions can come from COP29 and COP30. Okay, write down future agenda. Future agenda. Right. A future agenda, the new gender action plan will be adopted. A new action plan will be adopted. A new action plan will be adopted at COP30. New action plan will be adopted. New action plan will be adopted at COP30. Practically looking at gender. Advancing gender balance in climate decision making. Advancing gender balance in climate decision making and enduring gender equality. And enduring gender equality. First is what? I'm repeating again, what is the future agenda of COP30? In COP30, we will have an action. We will have an gender climate action, which has already been taken, just after 30 has been done in November 2025. Okay. So when we will discuss about that, Bellum package is also a very inquiry. Bellum package has been taught in top 30. All of this which has been taught here. So write down a new gender action plan will be adopted at COP30, advancing gender balance in climate decision making and ensuring that gender equality is centered, and ensuring that gender equality is essential. Gender equality is essential. Right on next. Last one, which is your Bagh Harmonia Climate Initiative for Farmers. Right on next point. Bagh Harmonia. This is for farmers. Each chief is a very important. What you can do that you can, when you see, it is also very helpful in GS1. When you are talking the society and there's a whole chapter over here. So when you're talking about the women empowerment, etc., the very GS1, you can write down all these points. In COP29 also this has been taken, centrality has been given to it, focus has been given to the gender responses. So gender is the topmost priority. So all of this can be discussed here. Similarly, this can be beneficial in your GSTSF in environment. Is something related to, again, gender responsive climate actions has been talked about, and you can use such lines. Farmers में कुछ आ गया आपको GST में agriculture में, so you can talk on the Bagh Harmonia action plan, which is for the farmers' welfare. Right, this is for the farmers' welfare. This is how you can write and practice your needs. Write down Bagh Harmonia Climate Initiative for Farmers. The full form is the whole sentence is right now. Bagh Harmonia Climate Initiative for Farmers. Climate Initiative for Farmers. Initiative for Farmers. लिखिए launch of the initiative. पहले लिखेंगे first point, launch of the initiative. COP29 saw the launch of Bagh Harmonia. COP29 saw the launch of Bagh Harmonia Climate Initiative for Farmers, a platform designed to enhance the performance of farmers. The platform designed to enhance the performance of farmers. The platform designed to enhance the performance of farmers and facilitate access to climate finance. क्या करना है? Platform designed to enhance the performance of farmers. We have to design a platform where the performance of the farmers can be increased. And next is your climate finance access. There should be some chunk of the climate finance that should be given to the farmers. That is what they are asking. There should be an access to the climate finance, because they need to finance also in order to improve on their productivity and improve on the kind of methods that they are using. Inclusive methods they should use, sustainable methods they should use, right? Next, partnership with FAO. Write down partnership with FAO. इसी के अंदर लिखेंगे partnership with FAO. In collaboration with Food and Agriculture Organization, in collaboration with Food and Agriculture Organization, comma, this initiative aims to bridge. This initiative aims to bridge existing climate initiative. It aims to bridge existing climate initiative in food and agriculture, comma, providing a more accessible route for farmers to find support. Right on next. The initiative will streamline the process. The initiative will streamline the process to access finances and resources. To access finances and resources. I don't few of the questions sleeping. Assignment questions I don't. Top 30 we will do tomorrow. I don't. Write a short note on global methane initiative. Write a short note on global methane initiative. Point number 1. Text write down. Write down what is okay, write down what is the national mission for Green India? Write down the next assignment question. What is the national mission for Green India? These are some of the assignment questions which you should do. Important have a what is the national mission for Green India? Okay, next. What do you understand by pool foliation? What do you understand by pool foliation? Foliation. And explain global cooling pledge. And explain global cooling pledge. I don't one more question. What is Global Peatland Initiative? What is Global Peatland? Peatland. What is Global Peatland Initiative? All are these assignment questions that you have to practice. And for the COP 30, I'll do it in detail with you tomorrow. Okay. So with respect to the climate, policies and convention, Okay, other conventions I'll do tomorrow, right? The one which is left for legislation policies that you're talking about. I'll do and discuss with you tomorrow, along with the copy of the. But please do remember that you have to do this assignment. It's very important to build upon the fundamentals, right? Okay. Any doubt? Please go through if you have any doubts. You will start writing. You can do one question at least. Please do practice one question at least today in the books. Yes. Is it clear? Have you written the question? Have you written the answer? All of you? Please comment. Julia, have you reached? Okay. Done. Thank you so much, class. Please do rest of the question as well. Still writing. Okay. No worries. Do rest of the questions also.